Texts are always constructed through the basis of context. Through context, authors are able to attribute worth to a text in terms of its value towards society or individuals. Though, since the world in itself is ever-changing, values of a text will most likely never be the same as they were originally intended. Through adaptations and appropriations, texts are able to explore another context, as the values, concerns, and attitudes change towards time. The related text I will be using to show parallelism through an adaptation is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2, Battle Tendencies. The original text was constructed by Hirohiki Araki in 1987 in the form of a mangaka. The fantastical universe of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures was originally intended to be an action comic for youth between the ages of 12 to 18. The adaptation of the series had changed the format from comic to animation in order to enhance the viewing experience for individuals. Additionally, the modernization of Western media introduced films such as Terminator, Rocky, and The Great Escape, in which Araki further drew more inspiration from. Throughout the manga, Araki distinctively states that although his comic does show values of justice, immortality, seeking life, power, or strength, the one value that Araki wanted to keep constant throughout his whole franchise was that of celebrating humanity. By this, he refers to not negating human beings. He attributes the worth of characters being positive and believing in their own morals and ethics. Araki represents the values of celebrating humanity through the characterization, experiences, and adversities of his protagonist. The method Araki uses to display his values of celebrating humanity was to have a naive protagonist evolve into a more serious and ethical protagonist. Joseph Joestar, the lead hero in the manga, is depicted to be a brolicky Englishman who lives in the city of New York. There is a call to action which forces the protagonist to step up and face an inhumanoid villain. Here we see Araki's value of having humanity attempt to triumph over evil. As the story progresses, the protagonist begins to become stronger. Due to the context in which JoJo's was created, we see the protagonist shift into a physique resembling a more Western Hollywood action hero. Another interesting choice of the original text was the setting and the time period Araki chose to place the story in. The story itself took place during 1939, during World War II. As a result, Araki was able to feature non-fictional characters within his story, some of which included literal Nazis and Hitler himself. Through the exploration of Japanese relationships with Germany, featured in the second source analysis, the fact that Japan and Germany were allies may have influenced Araki to positively write of the Germans. It is through context in which I believe Araki had chosen to take such creative liberties to express his themes and values. The anime adaptation for JoJo's, which aired in 2012, had remained almost perfect to the manga source material, with minor changes such as censorship, rebranding, and copyright issues affecting the adaptation. The anime's portrayal of the story was done well. The adaptation had remained faithful, and when parallel to the manga, scenes and dialogue can be directly read word for word. Tweaks from the source material included the renaming of characters as present on screen, many of which were the names of characters based off of real-life musicians. Branding such as Coca-Cola were also changed to Coca-Cola, and a Superman novel was changed to one of Araki's earliest manga. Phrasing from the characters were also taken to be less offensive than the source material. For instance, one of the scenes shows a policeman calling a character Black Bastard. However, this was later changed to bottom-feeding kind in the adaptation. Also, although the German soldiers were not changed, cameo characters such as Hitler were removed from the anime adaptation, possibly to remove controversy around the character. In an interview featured with the author, Araki states that his original works are more special, as they have been appreciated for over 20 years, rather than needing to be altered to fit modern-day society. Due to the fact that Araki's works have not changed, I believe the premise of JoJo's displays just how meaningful values of those times were, as they still are in this modern day of age. In an excerpt of Araki's work titled Manga in Theory and Practice, Araki states how values in a sense are how the creator views the world, and what he or she considers ideal ways to live. Although values of a society may change over time, I believe that a strong text will contain values which justify human ethics, and as a result, will have a longer lasting and more meaningful value to society. Peer review source 1. This journal presented by Kitahara describes the Western influence on Japanese culture. It reveals how clothing as well as media such as TV and commercials begin to air more Western and American shows. The author has used multiple sources and has collated such in the form of an article. The sources used throughout the article are cited in the notes section of the article. Kitahara's research displays the shift in the media within Japan. This is useful for revealing the context during the time of which the author created JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The source lacks in specific details such as the specifics of what time shows were airing. However, this does not completely deter the credibility of the source. The journal ultimately is useful in providing the fact that Western pop culture had influenced the fashion and attitudes of the Japanese. Peer review source 2. Within the following article, Rotem discusses Japan's relationship with Germany and other countries in the Second World War. The article includes a multitude of time periods depicting events during the Second World War. The information only necessary to the topic of matter is apparent in paragraph 15. The author has referenced multiple sources as footnotes throughout the article. The information in the article is useful in the project as it reveals the relationship between the Japanese and Germans. This is important as Araki had given the German soldiers present in his story a major role. This information, however, could also deemed to be inaccurate, as Araki may have had a different viewpoint. This article was not used as the basis of a value. Instead, it is only present to highlight the possibility of Araki's decisions.